Hello. You can always tell before you come on stage what kind of crowd it is and how many drinks you've had. You've all had at least 2. I'm sensing,
I should hope so.
yeah, I'm sensing a lot of mums on the Raz, double parking, one in each hand, knocking the first one back like a shot and then coming in and sipping the second one like ladies. Yeah, that's what I say here. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. It's so lovely to see you here. It still feels amazing for there to be actual events in the real world. Tonight's event, I will be in conversation with Sali Hughes about her new book, Everything is Washable, which is that greatest possible of all things in that it is a very useful book. If there is anything in your life that is making you feel trepidatious or unsure, from how to talk to someone who is grieving to how to make the perfect baked potato, Everything is Washable now means that you can have Sally sitting on the coffee table in your front room murmuring, "Do you want a hand with that, dude?" And I can't wait to talk to her about it. Before we start, a bit of housekeeping. First of all, a big welcome to the audience here at Islington Assembly Hall. Woo, woo, woo. We're also joined by hundreds, apparently 800 people are watching online as well, so make sure you represent here for the in-the-room people, for the people at home. I'm going to be talking to Sally for the first 40 minutes or so, but we want to hear from all of you as well. So if you're joining us online, start sending your questions to Sally via the Q&A button now, and we'll get to some of those later. And if you'd like to, please include your name and where you're calling from. It'd be nice to know who we've got and where you are. Maybe some people are in the queue outside Westminster Abbey right now. And thank you for joining us. You've got a long wait. Well done. We're going to be taking questions from you here in the hall. There will be a roaming mic in the audience, so put your hand up when it's Q&A time. And remember to make it a question and not a glorious, rambling, impressionistic tour through a couple of thoughts you've had. Personally, I love those speeches, but they tend to make everyone else in the room hate you. So that is just a word to the wise. So, Sally, as both my journalistic peer and my intimate ride-or-die bitch, I can fill everyone here in on the real truth bombs in your life and career. You were born in 1975, same year as me, in the Welsh Valleys, and your full name is Sali Hughes.
No, that's what you call it.
But you like to abbreviate it down to Sally because you think it's cute and adorable.
No, it is how you spell Sally in Wales.
Yes. First important fact established of the night.
Yeah.
For reasons that are outlined in the book and will one day make an incredible film, which I do intend to write myself, Sally left home at 14 and came to London, where you were basically raised by drag queens.
Yes, basically. Yeah.
And simply by working like a dog and hustling, you managed to rise from being makeup artist with the Pet Shop Boys to staff writer at Loaded and then freelancing for Elle, Grazia, Cosmopolitan and stylist before becoming the Guardian's beauty editor in 2011, because that is the kind of thing you could do 20 years ago. For any millennials or Gen Z out there who are hoping for a similar career path, it's not your fault that that isn't happening for you.
No.
That's what it used to be like then. It's not like that now. I'm so sorry.
This is true.
Yes. This year, she launched her skincare line, Sali Hughes Beauty, which sold out its first 6-month stock in 6 days. And the non-profit charity she co-founded and runs, Beauty Banks, donates self-care and hygiene products to the Trussell Trust, domestic abuse charities, NHS trusts, and care leaver associations. And you will have seen their drop-off points in your local Superdrug. Everything is Washable is her 4th book, after the bestsellers Pretty Honest, Pretty Iconic, and Our Rainbow Queen. And as it's clear she's very busy, and it's a miracle she's here right now, we need to start asking questions straight away. Ladies and gentlemen, Sali Hughes. Fucking hell. Well, just going through your bio makes it pretty clear. You know how to do stuff. You just know how to get things done. And what was the moment where you thought, I need to write a book about that? I need to write a book about getting things done?
Well, a few things happened. So lots of people would message me on Instagram and ask me to send them links to pool columns that they had liked. So I used to have a column in the pool until it closed, owing me thousands of pounds. And people would want to reread things that had nothing to do with beauty, because my background in writing is not beauty particularly. I couldn't send them those links, so that was in my mind, first of all. Then I hadn't written a book for ages, and I couldn't think of what to write next, but I knew I didn't want to write a beauty book. There was that. And then I bought myself a copy of Mrs. Beaton's Household Management manual. And it's an iconic book written in the 1800s. It's such a famous book, and you hear talk of it. It's kind of entered culture, but I didn't really know what the book was. So just out of curiosity, I ordered it. And Jesus Christ, it's like the yellow pages, right? So it's about that thick, and it's foolscap almost. It's an absolutely enormous book, and it's in like biblical writing. It's so tiny. It's so impenetrable and dense. And so I was flicking through it and thinking, God, actually none of this has anything to do with anybody's life. And I thought, I wonder, I like those kind of manuals. I like doing books. And I thought, I wonder what would be in a modern version of that. What would it talk about that didn't exist then? Like, how do you support a friend through IVF? How do you get an abortion? How do you ask for a pay rise? How do you squeeze a spot? I'm sure they did squeeze spots back then, but I think my way's better, probably. Yeah, so I thought about all these things that were not in that book and could never have been in that book because they didn't exist. And I thought it'd be quite nice to have a go at writing a useful, friendly sort of a book like that. And because I think it's fair to say in my friendship group, I'm the person that everyone asks things all the time. And this book, on the acknowledgements page, you'll see, we talk about this all the time. If you're struggling to write a book, which I always am because I've never got time, and I was particularly mental when I had to write this book, the best thing to do is think of one person and write it for them who asks you the most questions or who would find it valuable. And that person for me was Lucy Mangan. So Lucy Mangan asks me about 20 questions every single week. And it'll be things like, Sal, I've seen a photo of some fabric. Where's it from? And I'll be like, Liberty, 1876. Comes in velvet, was discontinued in satin 12 years ago. And like that is the conversation I have with her constantly every week of my life. And I thought, well, maybe that's the book. And fortunately, Fourth Estate, who have been my publisher throughout, liked it, thank God. So that's why I did it.
It is a genuine skill that you have. Like, I can't overstate how much this is true, that everyone asks out, because you know where stuff is, you know how stuff works. Like, and even if it's like I would be able to advise people how to dress like me, which is just simply go to a charity shop and there you would be done. But you know the kind of stuff I like, and you can recommend stuff that you wouldn't necessarily wear, but sure, you know what would suit me. Like, I can remember asking you for like a knee-length A-line denim skirt, and you were like, immediately you must go to either Acne, go and look at Ganni, go and look at APC, and I was like, what are these things? What? But you know literally everything. It's quite, you're like a little, how do you remember this stuff? Do you have like a filofax in your head? How does it work?
So I've got a very good memory. As you know, I remember everything, and I like learning things and knowing things. And I think the filter through which this book had to pass, because it's compendious and it was hard to know what to leave out. And my criteria was, why me and why not YouTube? So if I didn't know how to do something like change a tyre, I don't know how to change a tyre. I thought, well, if I have to look it up on YouTube, then it shouldn't go in the book. Either I should know it, or I've learnt the hard way that I didn't know it, and then it can go in. But I didn't want to look things up and learn new things, because then you just go onto YouTube and learn. I'm not qualified to do that. And so I just wrote what I knew and what I didn't know and wish I had known at the time.
Your memory is nuts. I can remember there was one Easter that we were I can't remember why, I was just going, I love those little Le Creuset pots that are in rainbow colours. They're so cute. I imagine that one day I'll have a lovely dinner party and I'll make a souffle for each of my 6 guests in each of these 6 different coloured pots. And then we carried on the party. And then at Christmas, 9 months later, Hughes turns up, here's your Christmas present, and it was the Le Creuset pots. And I'm just like, that was how I learned how to be a good gift giver. That's another thing you're incredible at. You don't ever give a gift, like kind of like, oh, just here's like some perfume or some flowers. It's always something beautifully created that someone mentioned 5 years ago, and you've gone, here it is now.
I mean, I literally know what your next 3 Christmas presents are. I log it. If someone mentions something, I think, oh, okay, I'll come back to that.
My last one was the auction catalogue from the Elizabeth Taylor jewellery auction about 10 years ago that's got amazing full-size pictures of every single piece of jewellery that Elizabeth Taylor ever wore. It weighs a fucking ton.
Yeah.
Like, you had to bring it up in a truck, but it's beautiful. Yeah. It's so thoughtful. So where were you getting your information from then when you were growing up? Where were you learning? Actually, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do reading, because like this puts into context why possibly you do want things to be lovely, and you do want to learn how to do things, and you want things to be correct and proper. And this is like, you've written sort of, I think for the first time, like really honestly and autobiographically about your childhood. So this is from the chapter on life. If I am really honest with myself, my proudest achievement in life, or at least my most unexpected accomplishment, is my ability to be a functioning adult, having transitioned from childhood prematurely and with zero training for the job. I would often come in from school, flick on the light switch, and nothing. I never asked why it wasn't working. I instinctively knew that the bill had not been paid, and we would just have to wait until payday for light. Similarly, food. We would have vast quantities of delicious things for a week, and then nothing at all for the next 3. Lunch money would fail to materialise, and so from the ages of 7 to 11, I bought 2 white baps each morning for 16p from the local bakery to eat at school and make my pocket money go further, and then I would gorge at my grandparents at the weekends. This general sense of chaos, organisational apathy, and dysfunctional feast or famine was all I knew and how I always expected life to be.
Yes, that's true.
I obviously know a lot about your childhood, and it seems that that was the start of you wanting to... I would imagine that you didn't really enjoy being a child, and you were just really looking forward to being an adult and going, when I am an adult, I will do things properly.
Look, I didn't have this kind of... it's not like I was a character from Oliver Twist. It was like, it was just chaotic. It was just really chaotic. And I didn't hate being a child. Like, I loved my brothers, I loved my friends, but I couldn't wait to be an adult. I just couldn't wait to be an adult. I just wanted to be a grown-up, could not wait. I always knew that my natural age was in adulthood, not in childhood. And I just could not wait for the day to come. And ever since then, I've been kind of obsessed with making it right and together and ordered.
So where were you learning about being an adult then? What were you seeing on TV or in books or magazines are a big thing for you? Like, what was the idea of adulthood that you're assembling in your mind? Where were you learning stuff about how to do things?
So I'm obsessed with magazines. I still love magazines. Magazines raised me, really. Just 17, I still consider to be one of the greatest. Genuinely, like, I still think it's one of the greatest things ever to exist in youth culture. The writing was brilliant, it was so fun, it was so irreverent, it was so informative. I was just obsessed. I would count the days till my magazine came, and then I would try and read really slowly because I hated getting to the end of the magazine. I just loved it so much. And I'm obsessed with magazines. My whole attic is full of magazines. I mean, I'm screwed if there's ever a fire. It'll go up like a Roman candle. But I love magazines. That was a big part of it. My grandparents were lovely. I was really close to my maternal grandparents. They were really, really lovely. Loved them a lot, was obsessed with my friends, and it was just kind of a thing of just getting on with it and learning as we went. And there are things like food. So I'm a good cook. My brothers are all good cooks. And the reason we're good cooks is nobody cooked for us. So we had to just learn to cook. And I wouldn't necessarily change that because, of course, if one thing changes, everything changes. But that's how I learnt to cook. And I learnt to dress because I've got 4 brothers and I didn't have a mum around. And so I just had to obsess over the girls' stuff from external places.
So who were your role models at that time? What were the girls you were looking at and going, that's the girl I want to be when I grow up?
I mean, Madonna, obviously. I'm obsessed with Madonna. So Madonna was, I would say Madonna and Victoria Wood were like the biggest influences.
That's a very good crossover, isn't it? That's everything a woman needs to be between those two.
So I was so obsessed with Madonna, and I still am. Like, I'm not here for you. If you don't like her now, she's old. I'm not here for it.
I love that she just keeps showing us her bum on Instagram. Just kind of like, I'm 60 now and here's my bum.
I mean, she just makes straight men apoplectic with rage, and it makes me so happy. She's just here for the girls and the gays at this point, and I'm just so admiring of that. She's
straight men don't exist for her anymore, do they? It's just like,
absolutely not. So I was obsessed with her. My friend Linda Reese and I were obsessed with her. I saw Madonna for the first time while I was sitting on my granddad's knee, and we were both like transfixed. I was tiny, I was in primary school. And I went to school the next day and I said, did anyone see Madonna on telly? It was the first time I'd ever seen her, and my friend Linda Reese said, oh my God, I did, it was amazing. And from that point on, Linda and I, all we talked about and all we did was dress as Madonna, talk about Madonna. And the other day, I found a postcard, I've got the photo of it. I didn't find it, actually. Linda found it and sent it to me because we're still in touch. And it was a postcard from America because I've got loads of family in Philadelphia. My grandmother took me to visit them. And there's a postcard I sent to Linda that's just like, I'm in America, Madonna's getting a divorce. and that was like, she was divorcing Sean Penn, and that was all I cared about. That was all I cared about, like cutting off tights, putting them in my hair, lace stock. It was just all I did, beauty spot on my top. It's just like all of it. I was obsessed. And so that was hugely influential. And actually really helpful to me when I did move to London. I just thought, well, Madonna did it. I can do it.
Yes, that is that. Yeah, exactly. You can run away to London and find your people.
Yeah, and you will find your people, yeah.
So what was the image that you had of your adulthood, and is that what you're living now?
Oh, that's a good question.
I mean, you've got a very fancy drinks trolley with beautiful baby sham glasses on it. I would imagine that was probably a key part of the vision. It feels like an idea you had at 8 and you've like fulfilled that now in your 40s.
I have to give my mother credit for this. So my mother, we might not have had food on the table or anything like that because she hadn't got round to it or was disinclined to kind of provide it, but because I moved in with her when I was older, but my mother always had something to give people to drink if they came to the house. And when people come to my house, you know, sometimes people come back to yours and they're like, should we stop at an offie? I'm like, no, it's fine. Because I've always got a well-stocked bar. I think to me, it's like the pinnacle of adulthood that you can always feed people and give people a drink. And I'm in the very privileged position to be able to do that. And that's important to me.
So I agree with nearly everything that you say in this book. I think it is genuinely a Bible for our times. Later on I'm going to read out the list of all the things that while I was reading the book, I immediately had to go and do by changing my life. I was literally, like 16 things that while I was reading the book, I was like, this is how I'm going to change my life. I've now got a new hand blender. I know how to...
Yeah, the Bamix.
The Bamix. I'm all over the Bamix
That was
now.
Twitter. That wasn't me. Somebody on Twitter told me to buy that a few years ago, and whoever it was, that changed my life.
I've got a whole list. I'll read them out later. I want to get your marks out of 10 for how good I've done in learning to lead the perfect life after reading your book. But we'll go straight to the controversial bit where I disagree with you.
Okay.
Toilets.
Oh,
so when Sally told me this about 3 years ago, we were all sitting around sort of like, you know, having a chat and stuff, talking about our lives, and Sal was talking about doing some house cleaning, and she was just talking about, yeah, I can't wait to get my marigolds on and get into that toilet. And I was like, what? She was like, yeah, no. I was like, with the toilet brush? She was like, no, toilet brushes are disgusting. No one must have a toilet brush. I would never have one in my house. They make me jip. And I was like, what? Everyone has a toilet brush. I have 4.
Not a single one in my house.
You don't believe in toilet brushes?
No, I think they're disgusting.
Well, so talk us through your less disgusting way of cleaning a toilet then. I find this incredibly controversial.
Why would anyone have a brush that sits permanently in pooey water in the corner of their bathroom? Like, that's remotely acceptable. Like, it's so disgusting. Like, and you go to a hotel or you go to someone's house and you lift up the toilet brush and there's like brown water in it. And even if you clean the toilet with bleach and then you flush the toilet on the brush, which I believe is what people do.
Yeah, waterboarding it, yeah.
It's like, it must be full of like horrible, horrible stuff. Just like, get your hands in there because you can wash your hands.
So tell us how you clean a toilet.
Okay. Okay, so first I put some bleach down. Well, firstly, nobody in my house is allowed to leave a dirty toilet. That's just not a thing that's allowed. I've got sons and a husband, and they're all good. They know that, like, shit be on if somebody leaves a dirty toilet.
Do you know if they actually do poo in the house, or do they go into like an alleyway and do it? Because like, I would be so scared of shitting in your house. I would just be like, I'm just going to go to the pub. I'll be back in 20 minutes and just come back doing up my dungas. Just kind of like, yeah, that's been taken care of.
So I put some bleach down there to get off the worst of whatever's there, and then put some marigolds on, get a cloth or some kitchen paper, which you can then throw away, and get your hand in there and scrub whatever's there off. And then you take the bleach and you wash your hands with the marigolds on in bleach, and then you rinse the marigolds, so then you've got clean marigolds, you throw away the kitchen paper or whatever, and you've got a clean toilet.
I have to admit, the first time Sally told me this, I was like, how could you not have a toilet brush? That's family history there. Like, the little brown hedgehog on the stick has seen so much, like, kind of, I love him, he's been a noble dude. But then 2 days ago, after reading your book, I did clean the toilet using your method. It's literally a different colour. Like, it is genuinely a revelatory thing. And like,
Thanks.
it is, you, as always, you're correct.
I'm funny about that. And toilet paper, I never have fewer than like 35 rolls of toilet paper in the house. Because we never had bloody toilet paper. We never had it. So the things we had to use for toilet paper were just like ridiculous when I was growing up. And so I always have loads of toilet paper.
So are you talking about now just that kind of haptic memory of taking the cardboard tube and using that to wipe? Yes.
When you take the cardboard tube out and you kind of dab
Yes, and it's
With
not
the
an absorbent. It's not absorbent.
Which we've all done in pubs, right? Like, of course, sometimes you have to do that. You have to get the cardboard inner and you have to just kind
Use
of...
it kind of like a kind of bum spatula, to remove the,
well, you must always check the supply before.
Yes, of course,
And so I can't bet, I've done that so many times in my life, including when I was a child. No, that's never happening in my house, ever.
It's one of the ways you can tell someone who had a chaotic childhood. We both have a store of minimum 30 toilet rolls in our houses.
You've always got loads of toilet paper, haven't
30,
you?
Yeah.
I like to see it.
Towels, tights and loo roll. That was what we never had as
You
children.
do,
Yes.
you do.
So the second revolutionary piece of advice that you have in the book, which again blew my mind when I first read it, but I was like, no, again, she is correct. You're just going, books don't need to be forever. You don't need to keep books. And this is sort of against, if you're a booky, ready person, we both are, we fucking write them. So, we're very pro the book. But I've always just thought, of course, you must keep every book. It's a beautiful memory. And to throw a book away would be heresy. This is a terrible thing to do. A barbarian would do it. But as you point out, you don't need to. Your house will slowly become that of a hoarder. You don't need to keep things. You get to a certain point in your life where it's all about, I think in your younger years, you're like, get stuff. Just get stuff. I can remember stealing traffic cones from the street and putting them in my house just so I had stuff. And
that's so you. I would never do that. That's such a you thing to take a traffic cone and put it in
I put a lamp inside it and it glowed really beautifully. I was like, whoa, this is street art, man. But then you get into your 30s and you're like, hang on, my problem is now I have too much stuff. And then I think you get to an age
it's
where...
It's just a job for your kids when you're dead.
Yes, yeah.
It's just like a horrible, traumatic job for your kids when you're dead.
And I think you just get to an age where your favourite thing becomes getting a bin bag and just walking around and just throwing away anything that no one's holding on to at the time. Like when I walk into a room, my children are like, no, Mum, this is precious to me. And I was like, I've seen it 3 times on the table. It goes in the bin bag.
I read a lot and I never buy physical novels. I only buy physical non-fiction. Mm-hmm. So I realised the hypocrisy in that because my very first book, I've always been with Fourth Estate, and the very first book I did, the reason my agent Georgia and I were like, we want to go with them, is that they make really beautiful books, and that matters to me. Like, they make books that look really lovely. And so if a book looks lovely, I will keep it, like a food book or obviously a fashion book. Something that looks lovely I'll keep, but a novel, I'm just going to get it on my Kindle because I just want to read the story and then be done with it. Or pass on books or whatever. And you just don't, I really believe, my dad was a hoarder. And what you would now call a hoarder, there was no word for it then. And our house was just full of shit. And I like proper shit. And I just really believe that if you keep everything, you value nothing. The things that really matter just get lost in the mess, and you never really get to enjoy the things that really matter and that make you happy because there's just too much noise.
I like that you've just released us to go, you don't need to keep this stuff. It's like a kind of, so much of it is like, you must have stuff and treasure stuff and keep it. And you've just gone, if you don't want to, you can let it go. And I found that very cleansing. And I now have 6 boxes full of books that are ready to go.
And also I think we put meaning onto things just because they belong to someone we love or we have memories of them. But actually, so for example, my grandmother used to put her makeup on at the dressing table and I loved watching her. But actually, when my grandmother bought that dressing table, which would have been from somewhere like MFI or B&Q or whatever, she just needed a dressing table. It wasn't like a magical, beautiful thing to her. She just needed to sit down and put her makeup on. And so I get to keep the memory. I don't need the MFI dressing table. It's not a beautiful thing. She was a beautiful thing. The memory's a beautiful thing. I don't need the prop to have the memory.
It's a different way of thinking about things, just sort of like, that comes across again and again in the book, kind of like you don't need to hold, you don't need to keep these things. The thing that I love, one of the things I love most about the book is your fashion chapter. And it's very common in magazines, or usually when I see sort of like in most places that fashion is talked about, when they talk about buying secondhand or vintage, they'll just go, yes, just buy secondhand or vintage. They never tell you how to do it. They never sort of like tell you where you can find it or how it works. Your entire section on fashion is about how fashion works, how you can put something together for the cheapest possible way, buying stuff secondhand. There's brilliant things in here. The first one is right designer, wrong item. Tell us about right designer, wrong item.
So I would say I buy between 50 and 70% of my clothes secondhand, and have done for many years. And it's my hobby. My husband will sit and watch football results, and I'll be on like eBay, and I genuinely really, really enjoy it. And I realize it's not going to be that for everyone. But there are a few things that I do that people can take from that. So one of the things I always do is get the item you want, but not from the designer who's famous for it. So for example, say if you want an old trench coat, I guarantee thousands of people will be on eBay looking for a Burberry trench coat, for a vintage Burberry trench coat. And so that drives the price up, it causes scarcity and all of that. So what you want to think is, who is less famous than Burberry but makes brilliant trench coats? Okay, Aquascutum. APC. You can get an Aquascutum or an APC trench coat for 30, 40 quid cheaper than a high street one. And so think about the thing you want and then look at who's adjacent, doing the same thing just as well, but are less famous for it. So Topshop, famous for their tea dresses, floral tea dresses. Go looking for a Topshop floral tea dress. They're still really expensive on eBay. Get a Miss Selfridge one, which was the same company and basically made the same things, and you'll get one for 8 quid.
And similarly, talking about how you turn a pair of jeans into a cut-off pair of shorts. Again, this was mind-blowing. Explain how you get that frayed edge, because I've tried so many times with so many scissors, and it just looks, I look like Daisy Duke having been pulled out of a dumpster. So but you've got the way to do this where it looks authentically frayed.
So if you cut your jeans off to make them into shorts, you will be forever and a day trying to make them look worn. They'll just look too neat. So what you need to do is cut them with a bread knife, a serrated bread knife, and then you get a perfect fray at the end. Then if you want them to look a bit worn with nicks in, take a nail scissors and cut vertically, not horizontally, picket it vertically and you'll get a hole, and then take an emery board or a bit of sandpaper and do that, and then you get like quite a natural.
The bread knife thing's amazing, because that literally, I did it last night with an old pair of jeans that I've been intending to turn into a pair of shorts for ages. You just put it on the breadboard, saw through it, and they instantly look like the really expensive
So what
frayed
happens is
shorts.
when you cut with the bread knife, when they're almost done, you just pull, and then you get, so they'll be quite kind of threadbare, then you just pull apart and then you get a perfect hem.
It's very satisfying to do, I can confirm that. And similarly, if you want designer underwear,
oh God. So I love underwear. I really, really love underwear. And I usually buy my bras from eBay because most manufacturers of underwear, like Freya, Fantasy and so on, sell their rejects on eBay. And when I say rejects, you get this brand new bra with tags on it and everything, and it'll have something wrong with it that I have never once in decades identified what the problem is. Maybe the bow is a little bit wonky or something, I don't really know, but they come perfect and they're about 18 quid instead of 35. So I get loads of bras that way.
So the next chapter is body, and obviously we know you are obsessed with skincare to the point where you've invented your own range. But the reason that you care so much about skincare is because you have had more problems with your skin than most people. You've had to learn to care about your skin earlier. I'm going to do another reading from the book, which I've titled Bum in a Jar, for reasons you'll find out now. One of my formative early childhood memories is of waking up on the floor of a dermatologist's hospital treatment room with nurses gathered around me, my mother shouting about the long wait, finally halted by the shock of me fainting. A very small chunk of my buttock still sat in a plastic screw-top container ready for a biopsy, which is where I had caught sight of it and apparently fell to the ground fainting, hitting my head on the equipment trolley. I don't remember much else except my mother shouted at me all the way out of the building and into the car park, and I cried. It was traumatic, but since no one died on that occasion, it was the least depressing and stressful hospital visit of my life, and yet possibly the most influential, because in the ensuing 4 decades, I have been very scared of hospitals and utterly obsessed with skin, possibly because I deduced that the proper care of the latter might allow me to avoid the former, and it did. So tell us about what was happening with your skin at this age.
So I have a condition called ichthyosis that I inherited from my father. So if you have ichthyosis, there's a 50-50 chance that your kid will also have ichthyosis. So one of my kids has it, one of them doesn't. So ichthyosis is, there are various things that go on with it. At the risk of sounding like Prince Andrew, you can't sweat properly. So you get really, really, really hot and you don't sweat properly, you don't sweat enough. There's that one thing, which has its uses, right? Fortunately, not the same use, but it has its uses. And then you have like really liney hands and feet. So my hands are kind of really liney, which someone was kind enough to say one time that I'm so dry-skinned because I do too much to it. No, it's literally a kind of genetic condition. Your hands and feet are really lined at the bottom, and you have a really rapid cell turnover, so you have to get rid of the dead skin all the time. So my father had it, and his skin was absolutely terrible. His ichthyosis was terrible. And he raised me, and he didn't know what to do with it. He didn't really care enough. And so I was teased about it, obviously, at school. And then I decided that I was going to take matters into my own hands and work it out. So I went to dermatologists. I think I went twice, maybe 2 or 3 times, with long intervals, biopsies and everything for them to diagnose. And then I just realized there were things I could do at home to make it better. And consequently, our ichthyosis conditions were night and day. My skin was so much better than his, because I realized that if I did things, if I looked after it, I could make my skin look a lot better. And that stuck, and I'm obsessed with all skin conditions for that reason, obsessed.
And that was the start of you becoming, and again, probably gathering that we all go to Sally for advice. So when I first decided I wanted Botox, you were the person that I went to, because I didn't even know what it was or how it worked. And I was like, because it felt like, I think people are talking about it more now, but at the time it felt like a thing, like you were crossing a Rubicon, and like bad vain women would wear Botox, would have Botox, but you weren't allowed to talk about it. You had to pretend that you were naturally beautiful, and that this was just from like, you know, popping a bit of Vaseline on and just drinking lots of water.
Just pinch my cheeks.
Yeah. And you were able to explain that, like, kind of like most of the women that we know in the public eye who say we think of as aging naturally and perfectly and not using Botox, they're using all kinds of injectables.
I wish I could say. The number of people who say to me on Instagram, well, I want to be like her who's growing old gracefully. I'm like, please. Like, the kinds of famous people, men and women, who we think have had nothing done, have had all of the stuff really well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Basically anyone who looks good in the public eye has had it done. Like
It's not possible to be a woman over a certain age or a man over a certain age and have your neck kind of up. It's not possible. It's not anatomically possible.
Yeah, if you put a famous person next to a normal person and the normal person looks like a troll, that's because the famous person has had access to all of this stuff. It's not a genetic gift.
Like, I've got such mixed feelings about it. I mean, look, I don't care if people do it or not. I'm not an advocate for it or not, like whatever people want to do. What I cannot stand is people hating on the player, not the game that they never asked to play and that they didn't invent the rules for. And people are horrible to women online about it. And also there's this other misconception that people who've had Botox, that's the reason they have good skin. They have nothing to do with one another. Nothing. Botox does nothing for the quality of your skin at all. So if somebody has really, really great skin, they're either looking after it very diligently or they have magic genes. They have like really amazing genes and they've acquired great skin from their parents or their grandparents. Botox does nothing for your skin. What Botox does is it relaxes muscles so that what we call active lines, which are lines from movement, don't get to be so prominent or don't get more pronounced. And people are horrible about it. It's very much a class thing, I think. I'm from South Wales. Nobody in South Wales gives a shit who knows if they've got Botox. My friends in Wales will text each other and say, come round and look at my Botox. When and I'm here for that. I just think, fine, like share the information. It's like a really middle class thing of hating women who've had Botox. I know people who'll spend 400 quid on a serum, but then be arsey about Botox. And it's like, well, you could spend a quarter of the money and have it actually work.
And have it work for 6 months as well. That was the thing that convinced me. Like, you know, you can go for all these facials and stuff. Feminism's weird about this. I think the conversation's sort of changing a bit, but the idea used to be that if you went and had all these facials and used all these tools and like kind of used all oils and stuff, then that was fine for looking after your face. But if you just did something that took 3 minutes and lasted 6 months, somehow that was wrong. And I'm just like, well, this is much more practical, quicker and cheaper.
The other thing, which is a bit of a deep cut, but another thing I hear a lot is women saying they really want Profilo, but they'd never have Botox. And Profilo is also injections into your face, whereas somehow the PR on Profilo has made people think that's fine, but Botox isn't. And that's partly because of press stuff.
My favourite thing about being, well, one of my favourite things about being Sally's friend is wherever we go, whoever we're with, whatever the conversation is, within 5 minutes, someone will have come over to Sally and said, so, Botox, where do you get it? Who's good?
Yeah, it's true.
We were once having a very cultural afternoon going around.
It's my birthday, wasn't it?
Yes, for your birthday. We went round an art gallery and we were having like this tour of the feminist art there, and we were being told all this stuff about the painters and sort of the feminist history and stuff. And then right at the very end of it, this blue stocking lady just leant across and went, you're Sali Hughes, aren't you? Where's the best place to get Botox? It's like everyone.
But can you remember what Lauren Laverne said? Because it was my birthday and it was Caitlin, Lauren and Nadia and me, and we were walking around, was it the Tate or?
I think so, yeah.
We were walking around, the National Gallery or somewhere. We were walking around and she asked us, and Lauren went, finally, I've been looking at your face trying to ask all the way through this tour. Finally, you said something. Because wherever we go, somebody always wants to ask and they're embarrassed.
Every single time without exception. So later on you can ask her where the best place is to get Botox. I'm probably why half of you came here. So body stuff, the body chapter. I mean, you've got cystitis there, it's the worst. You've got the best advice, which is pee after sex. The thing that everybody needs to know about cystitis. That is the best cure for it.
Don't even hang around for a cuddle.
No. Straight on the toilet. You can come back for the cuddle, but wee straight away.
Yeah.
White wine is evil. You are very firm about the awful, particularly for women. I think it's just after a certain age, it drives us into craziness. It's a one-way ticket to a madman situation, as the Spice Sugar Babe said. Like, we cannot, because apparently you stop producing the enzymes, but you've got, yes, you're very firm about white wine. And you've got this brilliant thing in there, which I think I am now going to take as my Bible, and I think maybe you wrote it at me, which is there's a point where you're drinking, particularly white wine, and you go to the toilet, and you're washing your hands, and you look in the mirror, and you call it the moment.
Yes.
And it's the moment where you're looking in the mirror going, I'm quite drunk now. And as a younger lady, you go, so now I'm going to have another one and really take this up another gear. And as an older and wiser woman, you go, no, this is the moment. I need to stop now and drink some water for an hour.
That moment is the universe tapping you on the shoulder and saying, babe. Because if you look in the mirror, it's always the loo. You go to the loo, you're washing your hands or something, and you look in the mirror, and there's a moment that you slightly look like somebody else, and you're almost looking at yourself in the third person, and you've had too much to drink, and that is the moment. That is the moment where you go, right. You don't have to go home. Go back out there, get some water. Have water or Diet Coke or whatever it is you like for an hour. And then normally after an hour, I can have another drink safely. But I don't get drunk. I don't like to be drunk.
It's really bad. No. I always do.
I don't
she
like
never
to
does.
be drunk.
She remembers everything. I remember nothing. I just text in the morning going, what did I do? Who do I need to apologise to?
You don't do that anymore.
I am getting better since I followed your advice. The other amazing, I mean, there's just so much advice in here that you're just like, yes, why did no one point this out before? The concept of going for a Christmas drink.
Why?
In the lead up to Christmas, where you're just like, you're on the phone or emailing someone like, we should meet up for a drink before Christmas. Why would you choose that month? It's the worst month. I see that now.
It's the most stupid time to be making sure you see everyone you know.
Why?
Like everyone is really busy. They've got loads of shopping to do. They're really stressed out. They're thinking about what they're going to feed their mother-in-law, whatever. It's a really stressful time when people go, so let's get together for a Christmas drink. It's like, no, do it in January. Do it in January when everyone just feels a bit crap. Go round to people's houses, have a drink there in January, and just give yourself December to meet your deadlines, to do what you need to do, to get family ready, to get the house ready, and just, give yourself the month off.
I feel such a burden lift me. And this December is going to be the first December I'm actually going to enjoy because I'm not going to meet people for a Christmas drink.
I literally do now. People say to me, we must meet up for a Christmas drink, and I will literally go, why? Everything's full. You're surrounded by pissed office parties. You pay over the odds for things. What's the point?
No, it's the worst possible idea. I'm going to quickly rattle through, so we're going to start the questions in a minute. There's so many bits of key advice in here. Choosing a baby name.
Don't tell anyone.
Don't tell anyone. Because...
So I have two sons, they're called Marvin and Arthur. And usually what happens now is if I meet someone new, they say, have you got kids? What are their names? And I say Marvin and Arthur, and they'll go, Arthur's a nice name. So that happens a lot. And it's like, no, Marvin's a brilliant name, that's fine. But if you are pregnant, the stakes are raised even higher. Never tell someone except your partner what you're thinking about name-wise, because what people will start saying is, oh, I was bullied by Sophie at school, or, or I used to work with a John who smelled of soup or whatever it is. And it's like, I don't need the input because there is always somebody who hates the name, even if it's a perfectly lovely name. So just keep it to yourself. Don't take on anyone's baggage. And then call your baby what you want. All you have to think about is, will your baby like it throughout life? And will you like it? And when I had my Marvin, I was told by my in-laws to sleep on it. I was like, no. And my husband actually said, no, that's definitely his name. So just don't, when it's a fait accompli, tell people.
And the final piece of advice that I'm going to share from the book before we go to Q&A is your date night advice, which again will change. So you already changed my sex life when 10 years ago you introduced the concept of the maintenance shag, which is when your children are younger, you need to schedule having sex because it just won't happen spontaneously. It's like...
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you've got, postnatal depression or you're really knackered, I'm not saying do anything you don't want to do. That's definitely not my advice.
It's not lie back and think of England.
But I'm saying if you're with somebody that you really like being with and like having sex with, it's easy to kind of kick the can down the road, and you need to schedule time and not wait for the wonderful sex, just have the sex.
Yeah.
Because you don't regret it. My friend Rachel always says, oh, it's like going to the cinema. I never feel like it, but I never regret it. And it's true. It's true. You never really regret it. So date night, I have issues with date night. So date night, I personally do what works for you, but I personally hate the idea of date night. I find it really stressful. I would rather just kind of do something in the day, maybe go for a coffee in the day and just not build it up too much. But of course, if people like date night, fine. But if you're going for date night, have sex first.
Because
you come home, you're full of curry, or you're like full of pizza or curry, you're really tired. It's like a job to do before you go to bed.
Yeah.
It's like, because you've built it up, this is date night, we're going to be a couple, and the natural ending to it is sex, and it just feels like a job. If you do it first, before you've stuffed yourself with food, then not only is that more comfortable, you're more energetic, it's more convenient, but also it makes the next part of the evening more fun.
Little frisson.
Because you can have dinner and you've both just had a shag, and then you can come home and watch the telly and there's no pressure and you can just enjoy your evening.
Right? It's literally life-changing advice.
It's
literally
true.
Oh, God, there's so many more things. So all the things I did after reading your book, I first of all went to check the condenser door on my tumble dryer. That's in the first chapter.
Yeah.
I Googled all the places that you said sell nice rugs. I've never known where to buy a rug. Sally's got a list of all of them. I bought a Bamix hand blender. I now keep all my vegetable peelings in a bag in the freezer to make vegetable stock.
Yes.
I now use Quidco and Karma, which are online things that save you loads of money.
Quidco.
Amazing. I now know what formal wear means. It means wearing a long dress. No one ever explained that to me. I just thought it meant posh. I'm going to buy all the makeup brushes you've told me. I've now bought some retinol. And the last one is interview your children every once in a while, just so that you've got a record of their voices and how they talk. It's such a beautiful idea.
It's really, really, really important. So my kids, literally, this genuinely happened. One day I walked past my youngest son's bedroom and I heard a man talking to him. And I was like, who is that? Who is that? I was like furious that someone was like grooming him or something online, and it was his friend who is his age. And then this quick thing happened where suddenly my children just sounded like men and all their friends sounded like men. And the things you miss, we all take pictures, but we don't record voices. And my husband and I really, really miss things that my kids used to say that they don't say anymore, like, I'm getting unchanged instead of undressed. And, all those little mistakes, you really miss them when they're gone. And we were talking about this earlier. My youngest son, when he was about 6, came up to me and he went, Mum, I want a cuddle. And I gave him a big cuddle and he went, no, with boobs in.
We know what that is, yeah.
And I knew exactly what he meant. That's a cwtch. That's what you call in Wales. A cwtch is like a cuddle with boobs in. I knew exactly what he meant. And I think you really miss those little idioms, those little turns of phrases. And so what I suggest you do is get an app, a voice recording app. You've got one installed on your iPhone if you've got an iPhone. And interview your kids at every part of their life. Ask them who their friends are, what they like doing at school, getting them to chat about their day, and just having that recording. You come back to it and it just brings tears to your eyes more than pictures do.
I know we're all going to do that. Anyone who's got kids, I can feel the entire room going, I am now going to go home and do that. Given that we've ended on the bombshell of your tits, which is the perfect place, I think, always to end a conversation with you, let's go now to audience questions. We're going to start with some of the ones that are online.
Okay.
Lou from Porthcawl. Hello, Lou from Porthcawl.
Porthcawl, yes.
Bally's girl.
My manor.
I know you had to cut loads from the final edit. What was your favourite piece of advice that you didn't include?
Oh, so I had to cut 40,000 words from this book.
Just so you know, like the average book is 80,000, so it's like half a book. It's just horrible.
I think this one is now 140 or 130, something like that, and it was originally like 180, 170, something like that. It's really, really long. What did I take out? God, I was in such a frenzy when I took it out that I took out some dog stuff. I took out...
How could you take dog stuff out? What dog stuff? You can do a separate dogs book. That's a standalone. Yeah.
I took out some dog stuff. I took out some personal stuff that I just felt a bit scared about sharing. I took out some mum stuff because I didn't want people to think they had to have kids to find it useful, because obviously loads of people don't have kids or don't want to read about having kids. You've got enough on looking after them. So I took out that kind of stuff. I can't think of the favourite piece of advice. Oh, I did. There was a whole section on gift giving because I really love giving presents, and I can't remember if it was my agent or my publisher told me to take that out.
Oh, so talking of the gift giving, we've got someone from Austria who says hi. Hello, Austria. Someone asked, did Caitlin ever make souffle for Sally in the Le Creuset pots? I regret to say...
You bloody have not, actually.
No, I regret to say I have used them as ashtrays so far, but I'm sure that will, but they're very beautiful and dandy, and I think of you every time, so yeah, that's good. Sorry about that.
That's a really beautiful story, thanks.
Sorry.
We've got single tear rolling down.
We're going to take questions from the audience now. If you want to put your hand up, I'll ask one of the questions that was submitted in advance while we get the microphones out. So we do down the front there. Have we got two mics? Yes. And do you want to do the other one there? And I'll just read out a question here while you're getting the mic ready. Romilly wants to know, what is the one purchase or style choice you've made that you've instantly regretted?
Oh, God. It definitely would have been something during the boho trend, I would say. I'm just not that person, and I think it's really important. You don't have to acquire it to admire it. You can like something while knowing yourself well enough to know that you are emphatically not a bohemian person.
Too drapey. It would just like, it just goes in a drink.
I can't do flappy sleeves. I can't do that. I need to like dash about. And I just look like, we've discussed it, I look like a cider wench in anything like...
A wench. I like your wench mode, but yes, no, I know why it's not.
Well, it suits you,
yes,
doesn't it?
Yes, I wench, yes.
Yeah, you do wench.
I tried to buy Sally a hoodie for Glastonbury. I had an idea I had an idea for Paul McCartney because I really wanted him to play the frog chorus at Glastonbury, and I was like, we can prompt him into playing the frog chorus if we all dress up like frogs in the audience and go right down the front. That'll make him do it.
This is our entire relationship, this situation here.
I was like, look, I found this amazing. They're like hoodies, but they've got like frog eyes on top, and they're green, and they're frogs, and we'll be four frogs, and we'll be down the front, and Macca will play frog chorus, and you were just so horrified. You were like, I will not wear that.
But have I told you what happened with that?
What?
So I was driving to Glastonbury. One of our best friends in the world, Nadia, was in the passenger seat of my car. I was driving. Her phone rang. It was Caitlin finding out where we were when we were getting there. I heard Nadia on the phone go, yeah, cool, yeah. Put the phone down, and I just went, she's found a garment, hasn't she? And Nadia went, yeah, she has. She has found a garment.
Do you remember Bernie Clifton, the man who had an ostrich that he rode on? It was like an ostrich costume, and his legs were the ostrich's legs, and he would ride this around. I found one at Glastonbury. I was like, I'm going to dress up and ride this ostrich around the festival. Sal will love it. I'll be pecking her. I'll be giving her a lift. Yeah, no, it was nixed quite quickly. No. Anyway, down the front, first question here. I wish I should have worn it tonight. It was an amazing outfit. You would have loved it if I'd worn it.
It does sound amazing. Hello, Swansea Gill here. It's lovely to talking. I'm going to have to be so boring and ask, where do you get the best Botox?
You speak for many women in the room, I'm sure.
So I see Joanna Christou at the Cosmetic Skin Clinic in London, and I recently did a live with her on Instagram where she's so brilliant, she answers loads of questions. I wish I could tell you who else she does, because that would inspire you, but I can't. She's amazing, and she's lovely, and she's kind, and when people DM me and ask me, I say, oh, go and see Joanna, and they always DM me back and say she was so lovely, she was so kind to me. I'm so happy, so... She's never steered any of my readers wrong.
If you do go and get it, tweet us a picture of before and after, and we can just be like, yay, join the club. Next question, we've got the second mic over there.
I just wanted to say really quickly, thank you very much for talking about your boob reduction on Instagram.
Yes, I have had a breast reduction.
Sorry.
Yeah.
That's fine. You talking about it made it really accessible in a way that I'd never considered before, and I ended up having one done off the back of it, and it's been life-changing, genuinely life-changing.
Isn't it, though?
Amazing. So thank you for your honesty. What's the worst advice you've been given? Because you're very good at giving good advice, but have you ever been given really any bad advice?
As I get older, I get angry about not very much except the government. Mm-hmm. I tend not to get really, really angry about much.
Yes.
I'm 47 now, and I have never in my life known a worse government than this. They're an absolute shambles, and they're appalling. So I don't get angry about much except them, except the only thing that doesn't really matter that makes me angry, that is advice often given, is things around manifestation. I think
that was one of the questions I was going to ask you.
Up the wall.
I was going to ask you the question, Sally, can you manifest wealth and happiness?
This makes me nuts, right? So to be serious for a minute, like, on the surface, it's this internet craze. I manifested this handbag, I manifested this. And on the surface, it kind of doesn't matter, and I should just think of it the way I think of psychics or astrology, which is, I think they're cobblers. But what I hate about it is that conversely, you're saying essentially that people who don't have good things and come to them are not thinking positively enough. And that makes me nuts, because I run a charity for people who live in poverty, and it is not their fault or their way of thinking. So the people we look after at Beauty Banks, every single one of them has a story that could happen to you, me, anyone. They have been caring for somebody their whole lives when they should have been at school, and that person has then died, and they've lost their housing because the housing was given to the ill person they were caring for. Suddenly they have nothing. There are people who just have ill health and can't work anymore and have to live on benefits. There are people who were in the care system their entire childhood, then got catapulted out of it. There are people who were beaten up by their partners. There were people who were beaten up by their parents. There were people who had 0-hour contracts. There are people who were sent to jail for shooting the man who raped their mother. Literally, there is a story behind every single one of these cases, and not one of them is living in poverty because they weren't thinking fucking positively. It just makes me mad. You get rich unless you inherit money. You get rich because you happen to be good at a job that pays very well.
Yep,
that is it.
And that
is it.
Just going to make sure that the microphones, if you put your hands up if you've got another question, that's while we
and so
take
it's
the mics.
a dangerous language that I hate, and I see it all the time like it means nothing, but actually it's so insulting and it's so offensive that it boils my piss.
Well, it's another thing I really love about this book, because so many books, when people are giving advice, and particularly books that are sort of more generally aimed at women, it is very much like completely change who you are and believe something else, and it's all about just thinking and believing and stuff.
Shut up.
This is a book about what you can do.
Yeah.
It's incredibly practical. At no point do you have to change who you are or change your belief system. It's literally just like, here's a problem, here's a solution. It's the most proactive doing, wishy-washy kind of believing yourself stuff.
I can't bear that thing of, if I think something, it will happen to me. Everything is a combination of good luck and hard work, and people talk a lot about hard work, but nobody ever talks about luck, and luck is so important in life. And it's about identifying when you've had a piece of good luck and knowing to exploit that good luck with hard work, with diligence and all of that stuff. And if you don't spot it, or if you don't have any, which lots of people don't, lots of people just have really rotten luck, then that is what you've been given, and a civilized society should be here to help you.
Totally correct. Got another question from the audience? You got the mic, lady? Go for it.
Hi there, Lucy Revel from New Zealand. I started a charity because of you, Sally.
I know who you are. Yes.
I started a Beauty Banks in New Zealand called Soap for Society because I was so inspired by what you did. And I just want to first of all say 10 years since In the Bathroom with Original with Sali Hughes and Caitlin Morna together. back in university handing around how to be a woman like it was some sort of secret drug.
It is, yeah.
And,
it's very illegal.
So acknowledging 10 years of that. And so that leads nicely to the question, which is, I've always wanted to know, how did you two become friends?
Oh, okay. Do you remember? I obviously
remember. So I was writing How to Be a Woman we talked to each other on Twitter. We knew each other through Twitter. And then I'd gone away for the week to write in Brighton How to Be a Woman. And I was just in a Starbucks and I needed a cigarette. And I just tweeted, has anyone in Brighton got a cigarette? And you appeared 6 minutes later in the doorway and went, here you are. And you helped me write that chapter. So that
I was in town, I saw your tweet, I DM'd you, you were in Starbucks, I got you some fags and I came and met you.
Yes, I know. And that was the start of a beautiful friendship.
Yeah,
and
it's true.
we just haven't, I think we also both neither of us like to go to bed. Like, we're always the last ones up. Like, it's always like, should we have one more cup? It used to be, should we have one more glass of wine? But now it's, should we have one more cup of tea?
Yeah.
Like, kind of like we're always up till, like, see the dawn quite a few times, don't we?
I'm always last to bed and you're always last to bed and I always feel sad when people start going to bed.
I can't handle it, I know. We always want to stay up. So, yeah, we've seen many dawns sitting in my back
garden. We have
garden.
seen many dawns with tea, yeah.
Set the world to rights.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's good. I think we've got time for one more question and then you've got the mic. That's it, perfect.
I'm going to hi, my name's Marina. I'm going to unashamedly tailgate the fuck out of that Brighton leitmotif in that last question. Two things I know from your writing that we have in common. We both live in the same city and we both sometimes get the same train. Well, not at the same time, obviously. But we also both love watching people do their makeup on the train.
Love it.
Firstly, because it's innately mesmerising and also because it will reliably greatly piss off, borderline traumatise any and all misogynists in the vicinity.
Yeah.
I'm
watching porn here on my phone.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I find it a double punch of joy. So I am making a slight platonic come on here, which is to say that if we are ever on the same train into work and I were to do my makeup, what kind of super extra procedure would I need as a suitable conversational icebreaker to make you go, oh yes, this is definitely a person I should talk to, even though talking on the train is awful? You know, would it be like a cut crease at Haywards Heath or a glossy lip at Clapham Junction that's blue? Like, what should I open with if you're ever around?
Just talk to me. I'll always talk to anybody. If people talk to me on the train or in the train station all the time, guaranteed if someone spots me at a train station, it's before I've put my makeup on. That is an absolute cast iron certainty. So people come up to me and go, are you Sali Hughes? I'm like, no.
Which is bad because you've got that monogrammed luggage. I remember you telling once.
You remember that? Oh no. So there was one night I was with Caitlin and Lauren and we'd had a really, really big night and she was like, stay at mine. And I said, no, I'm definitely going to get the train home. So I was on the train. I went via Marks and Spencer's and got a cheese and onion sandwich, which is my favourite Marks and Spencer sandwich. And I sat on the floor because I wanted to be near an open window. I sat on the floor between carriages and was eating a cheese and onion sandwich, makeup all over my face, sitting my bags on the floor. And a woman came up to me and she went, are you Sali Hughes? I went, no. And she went, it says SH on your suitcase. It was so humiliating.
You should have gone.
I looked like an actual bin person. Like, it was so embarrassing. You were delighted, obviously.
Yes, my favourite story.
But you should just talk to me. I love it when people talk to me on the train. And if somebody's putting their makeup on, I will just stare at them. So fascinated. Love it. Love watching it. I just find it so interesting. The tricks women have learnt for their own faces. I like to see what they've got in their bags. I love it. Absolutely love it.
That's a train date. I love this. We've now hooked you up.
You should always say. You should always say.
Train date. Well, that's all we've got time for, sadly. It's been, there's so many things that I could talk to you about this book. There's so many incredible things, but just buy the book. It's absolutely incredible. A huge thanks to Sali for coming here today and telling us just a tiny percentage of the things in your enormous organised brain. For those of you who haven't got your copy yet, Everything's Washable is out now. Thank you for joining us here in the hall and on the live stream. Sali will be signing books in the foyer after this, and thank you all once again for coming. Sali Hughes.
I'm so grateful for you to come. Thank you.